Hello and welcome to the Newsmax Daily podcast. My name is Kay Smythe-Hill, filling in for the incredible Tony Marino as he heads out on vacation this week. The date is Monday, September 29th, 2025, and I can't believe we're almost already in October. I woke up this morning, a little later than I probably should have, and God gave me a gift. He answered my prayers and allowed me to use my voice today to help shed light on the issues that matter most to all of us. And that's why I'm starting today's show with Katrina Zish and Bob Brooks from Israel with Newsmax's exclusive new show, Israel Now. You just have to listen to the first part of this segment to understand why I chose it to be our opener today.
This past week was the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, where world leaders discussed the war in Gaza, with some nations calling for a Palestinian state. American allies such as the United Kingdom, France, Australia, and Canada have already recognized a Palestinian state. However, President Trump stood firmly with Israel when he spoke at the UN on Tuesday.
We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities, including October 7th, even while they refuse to release the hostages or accept a ceasefire. But instead of giving in to Hamas's ransom demands, those who want peace should be united with one message: release the hostages now. Just release the hostages now.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying this to the UN.
You know what message the leaders who recognize a Palestinian state this week sent to the Palestinians? It's a very clear message. Murdering Jews pays off. Well, I have a message for these leaders. When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong. Your disgraceful decision will encourage terrorism against Jews and against innocent people everywhere. It will be a mark of shame on all of you. Israel will not allow you to shove a terror state down our throats. We will not commit national suicide because you don't have the guts to face down a hostile media and anti-Semitic mobs demanding Israel's blood.
Our team broadcasting from Israel spoke to Israelis about the recognition of a Palestinian state and their thoughts of Trump's speech defending Israel.
The only thing I can say, just like Trump and Netanyahu said many, many times, is just a reward for terror.
Hamas doesn't really want a country. They want to kill Jews.
All the world was in our side after October 7th. But after a while, everybody forget about what happened in this day.
On October 7th, slaughter a bunch of people, including babies and grandmas. Partygoers that had nothing to do with the conflict. Maybe some of them were left-wing oriented. Maybe some of them wanted a Palestinian state. Like, who knows? They just slaughtered everybody. And nobody talks about it today anymore.
I can tell you that they don't know what is going on.
Actually, it feels terrible. It feels terrible right now.
If they would just want a country, they're living here in peace. They get everything and more. It's easier for them than to me as an Israeli and Jew.
Thank God, there is a president in the Western world that actually stands for what actually happens, which is President Trump.
I know that we have to have United States with us. We have to have. Also, many Jewish residents of United States living in the United States.
I just see it for what it is, like the rewarding terror. It's not that complicated.
And joining us now, United States Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Ambassador, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you, and greetings from Jerusalem.
So tell us your thoughts about the UN General Assembly this week, President Trump's speech. Take it away.
Loved his speech. I thought it was exactly what needed to be said at the UN, and it was just refreshing to hear someone walk into that chamber and tell it like it is. I love the president for the fact that he doesn't care if what he is saying is deeply offensive to the people to whom he is speaking, because he speaks the truth and he speaks it with a clarity and a boldness that I find incredibly refreshing. So when he looked him in the eye and he basically told him, look, this could be a great organization. It should be, but it's not. You can't even get the escalator to work. I just thought it was brilliant, and I really appreciated the tone of his speech. I thought that it was exactly spot on, both in content as well as in spirit. And it was, again, a refreshing speech for a U.S. president or any politician to make at the UN.
We're going to head over to Carl Higbie for his Frontline show. And Carl revealed some of the most damning lawfare tactics coming from the radical left in our own nation. This includes mass attempted manipulation by legacy media, who I think at least, 15 people maybe in the whole nation still trust.
The legacy media wants you to believe that Trump is the guy politicizing the Justice Department. Yeah, right.
He's now making Comey a martyr for the rule of law. He became a martyr because a president said on social media to an attorney general, go and arrest this guy for the first time in our lifetime.
I'm sorry, what? Unless you're younger than 2, it's not the first time in our lifetime. But in this case, they forgot. Let's just refresh their memory. In fact, according to the same New York Times that got a Pulitzer Prize for reporting on the now complete BS Russian collusion case, by the way, Biden did tell his DOJ in 2022, quote, Attorney General Merrick Garland act less like a ponderous judge and more like a prosecutor who's willing to take decisive action over the events of January 6th. The same January 6th where we now know that 274 FBI agents were in fact undercover in the crowd, that the FBI also lied to Congress about and said were never there. How about the Georgia RICO case where Fani Willis, who is now kicked off the case, by the way, for an undisclosed relationship with her investigator that billed the people of Georgia for multiple trips to Washington, D.C. to meet with administration officials for a RICO case in Georgia against Donald Trump, directed, I suspect, by the Biden White House to a state crime in order to be immune from a federal pardon should Trump ever become president again. Nothing to see here. There were a whole bunch of people that got trotted down there, plastered on the front page of every newspaper with mugshots as if they were guilty on a case that's basically dead in the water now. Let's not forget the New York prosecution, specifically Alvin Bragg. And if you're going to tell me that the White House had nothing to do with that one either, explain to me why the number 3 at the U.S. Department of Justice suddenly just left that power job to go work for a city attorney that just so happened to be prosecuting Trump. We told you the other day about Operation Arctic Frost that scrutinized over 100 conservative groups. How about Merrick Garland's 2021 memo that led parents at speaking at school board meetings that were protesting COVID policies to be labeled domestic terrorists? Can't forget about the fact that the FBI actually did raid Mar-a-Lago, which more than likely now appears to have been a feeble effort to recover documents he kept in regard to the Crossfire Hurricane in the first place.
You can catch me on Carl's primetime show every Tuesday and Thursday from the 6 to 7 p.m. hour, weeknights on Newsmax. And we're going to switch up gears here again today, and we're now going to talk about the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk. Charlie is almost the same age as me. He was born just 2 weeks before me and did more in his life than most of us could do in 10 lifetimes. He was an evangelist of the highest order and will be remembered as a prophet, as a man truly sent from God to help usher in our next great American revival. He gave young men a purpose in the places that their parents, the schools, and the state consistently failed them. And that will be his legacy. Let's listen to Pastor Lucas Miles speak to Sunday Agenda more on Charlie and his time here on earth.
Pastor Lucas Miles is one of the leading evangelicals in the nation. He's also the author of Pagan Threat, interestingly, the last published work of Charlie Kirk, with the foreword that he also provided. Now, in your book, Pastor, first of all, welcome to you, sir, to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Talk to me first about your relationship with Charlie, how you knew him, and his reaction when you asked him to provide the foreword to your book.
Yeah, absolutely. I first met Charlie about 5 years ago. It was 2020. I ended up doing a podcast show with him. We kind of have a slow build to our relationship a little bit. His team at TPUSA Faith had gotten their hands on one of my previous books, Woke Jesus, and ended up inviting me to speak at a pastor summit. Shortly after that, he asked me to take over as the senior director at TPUSA Faith, running all the faith operations of Turning Point. And it was the honor of my lifetime to serve Charlie for the last year and a half in that role. And we've got a lot of work to do. We're going to continue the mission and legacy moving forward.
You know, I've been a big fan of Charlie. I've known him I've met him. I wouldn't say we were good friends by any stretch. I didn't know him that well. Wish I did. But certainly what's bothered me, Pastor, is the way that so many online have tried to take his comments out of context and try, frankly, to disavow his legacy of truth-telling and really being forward about the Word of God. Talk to me about how that's made you feel when you see that. I'm sure you've seen some of it too. How does that make you feel about your friend, and how do we combat that?
You know, normally when somebody passes away, it becomes an opportunity for people to do the very thing that you're describing, because they don't have a lot of information from that person to be able to speak from the grave, to share their perspective. This is not the case with Charlie Kirk. There are countless hours and even more to come of video regarding his perspectives, his opinions, his arguments, and anybody who watches more than a soundbite will see that Charlie was first and foremost a Christian. He loved people. He's one of the only commentators that actually gives other people the microphone for hours to be able to share their perspectives, so he can listen and engage with them politely, with with calm discourse back and forth. Charlie Kirk was one of the greatest among us. He's a man of integrity, both in front of the camera as well as behind the camera.
Absolutely, Pastor. Now, we know he would ask tough questions, right? And he made strong statements, especially about the Word of God. And in his foreword, he wrote that the nation faces, quote, terrifying, dangerous threats from the woke left. What I'm curious about, in your private conversations with him, did he ever speak about his own safety and concerns about, his safety?
You know, I think that Charlie was well aware of the threats. I don't want to say anything regarding our safety plans or anything like that, but I think that he knew that there were threats every single day, for his life. It's no secret. People have talked about this already. There's been, countless death threats towards him over the years. Charlie knew what he was doing. He knew what was at stake. He knew it was at risk. But this just shows how much he cared about this generation, that he continued to put himself out there. He wanted to be where they were. It would have been easy for him to stay in studio and just, kind of be a talking head. But he knew that in order to reach them, he had to go to where they were. And he did that better than anybody. And
what I love about the book, Pastor, and also about Charlie's stance, is he spoke about the Word of God in a way that was also intellectual, right? He would challenge the left, going to the center, the heart of the beast, if you will, on college campuses and saying, this is what I believe and this is why I believe it. And as a result, we've seen more than 121,000 new inquiries to create Turning Point chapters. What does this tell you about the need for the conservative voice in this country and about the movement that Charlie started?
Look, everything Charlie did was really undergirded with the Word of God. He believed in it so much. He loved the church. He loved pastors. We're seeing a groundswell right now of just support and activity and desire to get involved. I think people, Charlie and I always talked about there's three types of pastors or three types of Christians: true, traitorous, they're obvious, and then there's a middle category, and that's trembling. And I'll tell you what happened at that memorial here last week is that the trembling Christians of this nation, I think, were awoken, and they are now looking to get involved. They want to offer their support, and they want to do whatever they can to stand up.
I've got about 20 seconds, Pastor, but we do know that the new CEO, Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, she has made it clear that the campus tours are going to continue. The next stop will be Utah State University on Tuesday.
I strongly encourage you to go to Newsmax's YouTube channel and watch the rest of the interview with Pastor Miles. You can also see where to buy his new book, Pagan Threat, which is probably the first time I've ever heard the word pagan get used correctly, so that's very cool. But I do hate that we now always have to associate this time with Charlie's last moments on Earth. So let us not let that be in vain. Right, guys? Now, for our last longer segment today, we're going to hang out with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani, and listen to why all of this news about James Comey is so important.
America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a welcome. It's really a very welcome to be with you. You're so terrific.
Oh, you're so sweet. So I want to talk about you first crossed paths with Comey. You know him. In the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office, where he served as an assistant prosecutor, you were his boss. Now, you stated you regretted hiring him back then. And now, based on these reports that we're seeing, how strong do you think this case against him is? And do you expect him to face even more charges?
Well, it is very extraordinarily disappointing to have hired him. I'm pretty realistic about things like that. I don't worry myself about guilt that I can't do anything about, because there's plenty that I can do something about. I had no idea that he was anything but quite a good, better. I can't say great, but I can say average. He was a better than average to very good assistant U.S. attorney candidate. I didn't have any lingering doubts when I hired him. I always measured three people against each other in the final process. Getting hired in the U.S. Attorney's Office is kind of like as difficult as in those days getting into Harvard Law School. Mm-hmm. We had our pick of the top graduates of every major law school, and then some people we might want to take from a district attorney's office who had local knowledge. It was a very sought-after job. He was a good assistant U.S. attorney, and the first time I realized there was something wrong with him was long after I had been with him, kept up with him a bit, and that's when he went after Martha Stewart when he became U.S. attorney. I thought the Martha Stewart case was the sign of a publicity-hungry, out-of-control prosecutor because of an unnecessary case. And you could look into your soul and very easily say, without any doubt, case never would have been brought if it were your next-door neighbor or just somebody else, or even a wealthy financial guy. I started insider trading prosecution, so you can't argue with me. And the rule was, first time, no crimes, unless there's aggravating circumstances, civil plea. And civil pleas are a killer. They can bar you from trading for 5 years. They can take a lot of money from you. But what they do is, it's like a warning ticket with teeth, right? Mm-hmm. They tell you, now you know that insider trading, unlike taking a tip at the track, is a crime. Don't do it. He went ahead. He made a big deal out of it. He made a jerk out of himself doing it. So he did that again when he refused to sign an affidavit for national security.
He likes the spotlight. I didn't realize he was the one that spearheaded that case against Martha Stewart, which you're saying it could have been just a fine. So why do you think that is? Do you think that's also what motivated him to go after President Trump as well?
What I missed in the interview, and I didn't on others, other people I didn't hire for this reason, was that extraordinary extra desire for self-adulation. Look, most U.S. attorneys are outgoing people. You're not going to have the guts to stand in front of a jury and argue a difficult case. They have to be able to relate to the public. We have to be transparent. We can't be afraid of press conferences. And we should make use of press conferences for the right reason, like catching criminals. And I use press conferences probably more than anyone, but never for self-aggrandization. I never spoke at a press conference without having the FBI, the police department, all the people that were really responsible. I didn't go in with a gun and arrest them, do a lot of the speaking and giving them all the credit. When I said on 9/11 that I rested on the shoulders of giants and it was the cops and the firefighters that did it, I had said that 1,000 times as a U.S. attorney. He didn't have that feeling. He didn't know how to turn it back. It was all about Jim Comey. Then I kept very close to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was the best U.S. attorney, I'm sorry, Lydia, I have to say this, that they had probably since Tom Dewey. And certainly the best one of the last 100 years. So they would come to me because they couldn't do things like I did. None of them accomplished anything a quarter of what I accomplished. So I was friendly with a lot of them, and they were starting to tell me, this guy's a real in-it-for-himself guy.
And that's our Monday show, folks. My name is Kay Smythe-Hill, filling in for my absolute favorite, Tony Marino. I appreciate you all for taking the time to tune in today. If there is ever anything you'd like me to cover on the show, you can let me know. Just hit me up over there on X. I'll be on with Ed Henry tonight on Newsmax 2 in the 6 p.m. hour, Tomorrow and Thursday with Carl Higbie, also in the 6 p.m. hour. Today is September 29th, 2025. You are listening to the Newsmax Daily podcast. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and God bless.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.